And of course, my thing with IVs is patients that are transported to the emergency room are going to get one regardless. It doesn't matter if I do it or the ER does it, they're getting stuck. That's generally how it goes. They're going to want to have an IV in them as a standard precaution in case they need a medication. And of course, they're going to want to do a blood draw as well. I personally prefer to do blood draws in the field if possible. It can speed up the process of getting them through the ER. And if you've got the capability to do that, I think you should exercise it. But the other thing with the IV starts is that's kind of a perishable skill. To me, it is important that your EMS providers remain proficient at it. So it's better for them to just go ahead, stick the patient pre-hospital setting, keep that skill maintained. That way, if they're in a critical situation where a patient truly needs an IV, they'll be competent enough to do it. If you're working in the emergency room, you see so many patients and do so many IV starts, it doesn't matter. EMS can stick every single patient that comes through the doors, and you would still get plenty of practice yourself. In fact, EMS doing that saves you time when you're working in the ER. I'm speaking from experience here. Like, hearing that the patient already has an IV is usually something that we are quite excited about. Because otherwise, you now have to go and take your supplies, break away from whatever it is you're doing, and get that IV going. And that's kind of the other thing, too. Is like the emergency rooms, they're always understaffed for whatever reason. There's never enough nurses, never enough techs. I know where I was working, we had 6 ER rooms, and we had a skeleton crew of 1 nurse, 1 doc, 1 tech, that tech being me. So, of course, as a tech, you're basically a foot soldier, and you're running around all day long. And that place could get slammed. It could get incredibly busy in there. Obviously, you've got 1 nurse, too, in charge of potentially 6 or more unstable patients. So you can get several at the same time. They're unstable. It's not really a good situation. So, acknowledging that, the more that EMS does pre-hospital, the better for the ER. Now, I think there's another consideration here, and that is on-scene time. And that's why I am a big proponent of doing interventions going down the road. You should be able to start an IV in the back of a moving ambulance. If you can't do that, you need to work on it. That's an essential skill. You can safely do this if you are competent and if you're able to sort of maintain an eye on what the truck is doing and what your driver's doing. Obviously, certain ambulances are going to be more conducive to this than others. If you've got some worn out old truck that's got basically 1 functioning shock absorber, well, good luck getting an IV going down some bumpy, worn out country road. It's probably not going to be an easy thing to accomplish. But you could always just have your driver pull over for a second while you stick and then hit the gas, take off again, if need be. Me personally, of course, I'm not going to try to, I don't know, I wouldn't really say that it's embarrassing to ask him to do that, but I want to be good enough that I don't have to do that. I want to be good enough that I can stick while we're going down the road and the driver doesn't even realize it. And for the most part, I am. Everybody has their bad days, and every now and then you're just going to have a situation that doesn't go the way you would like it to, but I think that as a general practice, you can indeed safely do IVs going down the road. You do a whole lot of stuff in the back of that ambulance that you wouldn't think would be possible. And doing this, you can keep your on-scene time to a reasonable amount, and at the same time also make life easier for the emergency room staff and keep your skills up. Because let me tell you, if you can stick in the back of a truck going down the road, you shouldn't have too many problems getting an IV most of the time. There's obviously other tricks you can employ as well. Not really going to go into those right now. I'm just going to talk about the general philosophy here, which is that it is important, I think, to get that IV practice. If you're working pre-hospital medicine, if you're working EMS, your call volume may not be sufficient to get you as much practice as you'd like. So you need to take those opportunities. And I guess you could ethically ask the question, well, is it good for the individual patient to have EMTs performing this skill, especially in areas where they're not getting enough practice? Is that really the kind of thing we want to have happening? Like, wouldn't it be better for that individual patient if they got taken to a brightly lit ER where an experienced tech sticks them? And I think that's a legitimate question, but you got to weigh that against the public good as well. And the public good is going to be served by having people get some degree of practice to enhance the chances of them successfully performing the skill when it really counts, as opposed to it just being a routine patient being taken to the ER. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here, is IV starts on the routine patient, the one that's not really critical. I mean, they need to go to an ER for something, but they're not unstable. They just need to be seen by a physician, that kind of patient. And I feel like it is generally a positive thing for EMS to do that IV start on that patient, keep that skill level up there. There's a few things that I think that EMTs could do a little bit better in that regard. One thing, you need to consider whether or not your patient is likely to be admitted, and take that into account when you're placing the IV. Like, dear God, please don't stick them in the AC if you think they're going to be admitted. Try for the forearm, hell, the hand if you have to, but avoid the AC if you think that patient is going to spend several days on the hospital floor or wherever. If you think it's going to be a turn and burn where the patient is seen by the ER staff and then cut loose the same day or within a few hours, well, you can be a lot more liberal with your choices here and stick them on the AC or wherever. Because I mean, the AC is a good location. It's not typically a painful place to get stuck. Usually, you've got a good chance of success there. There's typically a pretty good vein, and the other advantage, of course, being that it's closer to the heart. There's certain medications that you want to deliver that way, and just in general, it's going to get you a little bit better access in some respects. But not really a good place if the patient's going to be bending their arm. If you're going to be in the hospital for a while, you really want to think twice about having an IV there. It's better to stick in the forearm somewhere, preferably the non-dominant hand, and kind of take that into consideration. Also, I prefer to shave the site if there's a lot of hair there. If you can take the time to do that. And I mean, I'm kind of anal about the way I do things, but I think that it really helps to go ahead and clean that up, make sure it's neat and presentable. And that way, when you take that tegaderm off their arm, you're not completely defoliating, ripping all the hair off them. Anyway, those are my 2 cents on pre-hospital IVs.